Hi everyone, I've had a request to talk about making your own flat patterns for hats. So this is what we're doing in this first video. I'm going to do a session of different videos explaining from the most simplest up to getting more difficult and altering the patterns, etc. So we're going to start today with what must be the most simplest hat pattern of all, a rectangle, as you can see here. So this is what we're going to base this pattern on. Now, rectangles are one of the most popular choices for something like a pillbox. That's just a rectangle. A boater, that's a rectangle. A pull-on hat, that's an elongated rectangle, very long one with a roll-up edge. A bucket hat. Now, this is not a rectangle. This is a cone shape. So this is something we'll be tackling in a later video. So don't expect this shape to come out. We're just doing rectangles today. Now you'll see that I am using my computer to do this, which is where I do all my patterns. I do them in Inkscape, which is a free vector graphic program. But you can do most of this on paper. You don't need a program to do it. You can just do it on paper with paper and a pen. So for our first rectangle, what you need to know is how big you want your hat size. Now I've gridded up my paper in 1-inch squares because it's easier to work. And if you are working on paper, if you can find gridded paper, that's great. If not, doesn't matter. We can work without it. Just takes a little bit longer. So I'm going to work on a hat size of 22 inches because this divides up nicely and makes for ease when I'm showing you. And also I've done 1-inch grids because the US use 1 inches. A lot of UK and other countries can understand 1 inches, but you can do it in millimeters. It's actually easier to divide up when you're doing millimeters, but I'm going to stick with inches here at the moment. So anyway, I'm going to choose a rectangle that is 22 inches long. That is going to be my basis for the pattern. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 22 inches. And there is my starting line for my hat. Now, how high you make it is dependent on what type of hat you want to make. So, of course, if you were making a pillbox, you might only want it 3 inches high. If you were making something with a higher crown, you might want to go 5 or 6 inches high. But for ease, again, I'm just going to go with 5 inches high just to draw it out. So, we need our rectangle, 5 inches high by 22. And you can draw that out, as I say, on paper. You don't need to use a computer. So let's just make it more so you can see it. There we are. Now, once you've drawn your rectangle, you'll need to add your seam line. Now, I'm going to assume that we need a seam line all the way round. We'll need one at the bottom, at both sides, and one at the top. Now, you could, in effect, chop this in half, have it just 11 inches and place it on a fold, and so you wouldn't need a seam line on the fold line, but I'm going to cut this as a one-piece pattern. So what I need to do then is add, I'm going to say 1/2 inch all the way around for my seam line. So I can work that out on the paper, and there we have it. We have our very easy rectangle. Move that to the bottom. Okay. So here we have our seam line and our main part of the pattern. And that will be the basis for all of these shapes. So depending on how high you make it, you can make all of these. Now, if you were doing a pull-on hat in fabric, you'd make it very long so that you'd had enough to turn up for a cuff. So, you know, think about it when you're making your pattern. So there we are. So then you've got the base for the crown, and what you need now is the top. Now, your top is normally either circular or oval, depending on what type of hat you're making. Now, obviously an oval is a better shape for the head, but a lot of hats look very good like a boater just with a round top. Now we're going to have to work out the circumference of our circles and our ovals. Now, if you've got a 22-inch circle, you need to find out the radius. That's from the middle to the edge. That's the measurement we need. Now, there are tons and tons of programs online which will work that out for you. Just type in what's the radius of a 22-inch circle and you'll find a program that'll quickly do it for you, rather than sitting with a calculator and working out pi r squared. Now, I know that the radius for this needs to be 3.5 inches. So that is my radius point. Oops, made it a bit long there. Let's move it in a bit. 3.5. Oh, hang on, I'm snapping to grid. So there we are. 3.5. And that is going to be my radius. Now, if you're doing this with pencil and paper, you'll need to put a protractor in and put your point in there, have your pencil there, and draw a circle all the way round. Now, because I'm doing it on the computer, I can just do it on the computer. So I will make my circle. Oh, let's have the fill center with 0 in it so I can see my line. There we are. So I work out my circle, 3.5 there, 3.5 there, 3.5 there. So there we have, I've got my circle, and that should measure 22 inches all the way around. Now, of course, again, you need to add another circle with your seam allowance. So again, I'm doing 1/2 inch, and you'll see it's easy enough to do it on here, but you can do it with paper. I've done it before I learned how to use this program. That was the only way I did it, with paper. So there we are. So now we have our circular head with our radius there, and the circle for the main size of the head, and then our seam allowance. Now, if you want to do an oval, again, you can look on online, and it will tell you, there's a little program I think that's free that tells you how to work out what you need for an oval. And what you need to know are the two main access points, so from top to bottom and from side to side. Now, I know that for a 22-inch circle, I will need it 8 inches long. So 3, 4, 5, 6. Where am I? 5, 6, 7, 8. So I need it 8 inches long, and I need to have the middle point again. So you work your middle point to, sorry, there we are. There we are, like that. And then I need 6 inches across. So again, I take my pen and do 6 inches across. So now I've got my crossed lines. I will put them up a bit so that you can see them. It's not so easy doing it on the computer when you can't see it so well. So there we are. So that's 8 inches that way. I've got the centre point in the right place. Ooh. There we are. And let's see there. Yeah, it's about right. And we've got 6 inches that way. And then you want to join those up into an oval. Now, if you're doing it on paper, what I suggest you do is do your curve there and then fold the paper over so that you can mark the curve there, and then fold the paper in half to mark it this side, so that you end up with it even and equal. But again, I'm doing it on the computer, so I can do it fairly quickly and easily. And there we have our oval, which should measure 22 inches all the way around. I can actually figure that out on this computer, so I'll just show you. Let's see, visualize path, measure path. I have a large font so you can see it, and I'll ask it to look in inches. Takes a second to do it. And it's done it. Where's it done it? Oh, it's because there's no colour. Nope. Oh dear. See, I only learnt this program a few months ago, and I still struggle sometimes to do everything correctly, but it's fun to try. Anyway, you can measure it. So anyway, we've got our oval. I'll fiddle about with that later, show you. And again, you'll want to put your seam allowance on. Now, again, I want it to be, I'm gonna say it's gonna be ½ an inch again. Keep everything equal. So. Now, what I must say is, do mark everything with what you've done, with the fact that you've made it 22 inches, and this is 22 inches, and put how much your seam allowance is, so that you know for future reference. There's nothing worse than making all these patterns, cutting them out, and then you can't work out what's what. So there's no point in adjusting this size for a bigger size. It's simpler to actually make another one, because once you've cut it out, it's cut out and you can't adjust it. So that's how to do the top. And that means that then you've got a top for all these hats here. So you can either have, as I say, an oval or a circle. Most of these here that I've drawn would do fine with just a straight circle. You don't need to do an oval particularly for any of those ones. I mean, there are tons of types of hats that just consist mainly of a rectangle and a circular top, but I just thought I'd put these up there. So once you've made your pattern, you can alter it for other things. So for example, if you wanted to have it 3 different colours, you'd make 3 rectangles, or 2, or 1 smaller if they were all going to be the same size. So I could, let's for example, get rid of that a minute, down here. So I could have 3 of those and cut them out, but don't forget again to put your seam allowance around them, otherwise you'll forget that and then you'll struggle, especially if you're joining 3 together. They'll all want a seam allowance. So you could have 3 narrow bands to join together and make a stripy effect down your hat. And you can also alter it into other ways. So for example, you might want to, let's take this again. You've got this here, it's your rectangle. You might want to take out part of the middle. And again, put a stripe down the side. So what you would need is 22 inches, but in 3 different sections. So you'd get your calculator out and it's such fun when you're watching me on the computer. I'm rubbish. Oh dear. So we've got a calculator and we want 3 sections for the band round. So it's 22 inches divided by 3 equals 7.33. So you would do 3 sevens and a bit. That's what I mean about, it's actually easier with centimetres. So you'd have like that, and then another one, and then another one. And again, don't forget to put your seam allowance all the way around the edge. So you can do a lot with a rectangle. In fact, there are lots more things I could show you to do, but I'm going to keep it fairly simple for this tutorial. So we started with a rectangle, and our next tutorial will be with a triangle. I hope you've enjoyed this and it's helpful, and look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.